Now, looking forward to this, we are continuing our series where we chat to some of the Christian organisations behind the emergency services. So far, we've spoken to the ambulance service. We've spoken as well to the RNLI, and today we're joined by Brian McCarthy, who's from the CPA, which stands for the Christian Police Association. Good morning to you, Brian.
Good morning, Gareth. Great to be with you.
Great to have you on. So tell us about the CPA, because I made a comment, and I hope I'm sort of right with this, but because it was formed in 1883, this must make it one of the oldest associations in the UK.
I think it must be one. It's certainly one of the oldest staff support associations in the police. I think it's probably the oldest, yeah.
And how did you get involved? Because there's no way that you were there when it was founded in 1883.
No, it was a little bit before my time, the formation, but there's a lady called Catherine Gurney in 1883. She felt God calling her to go forward. She met a police officer in London and formed, I think, 9 charities, of which 4 are still going now, which is amazing. I got involved. I came to faith in Christ in 2005. Shortly after that, I discovered there was a CPA, and not long into it, I became a branch leader. I volunteered for them for 13 years, leading a branch in Cleveland Police. And to be honest with you, it was one of the best things I ever did, joining a staff support association in a tough job like policing, when you've got a group of like-minded people all around the UK. It's amazing when you get together and you see that you're facing the same tough challenges, but facing it with your faith. But it helps you to bring your whole self to work. It's an amazing opportunity.
And presumably you were a policeman at the time. Is that right?
Yeah. I'd always wanted to be a police officer from being a kid. My mum had alcohol problems. It's something I'd always wanted to do. So really, I managed to achieve my vocation. So yeah, I joined the police in 1994. In 2005, 11 years later, I came to faith.
And when did you leave the police force?
Last November.
Oh, right. So still early days then, really, isn't it, for you?
Yeah, I took up this job in November after 27 and a half years service. Yeah, it's
well done.
Thank you. It's a great bolt on to my career. I've absolutely loved being in the police. There's obviously tough times in every job, but I would do it all again. I absolutely loved it.
I think everybody wants to be somebody who saves lives. Everybody wants to be that hero, whether it's a firefighter, a police officer, but we don't take into account the dangers. Now, I've got a friend who's a policewoman in Liverpool, and she tells me some horror stories. And to be honest, hearing those has completely changed my mind on it, because I used to think, oh, can you imagine? It must be great, solving crime. But have you seen, in your experiences, have you seen it becoming more of a dangerous job over recent years?
Well, yes, and statistically, it's supported that it's become a more dangerous job. The assaults on police officers have doubled in the last 5 years, and police officers are twice as likely to take their own lives than be killed in the line of duty. So it's a really dangerous job, but not just the police. Other emergency services you mentioned earlier, fire service, ambulance service, they suffer. I think some people, there's just a tiny amount of society that attack the emergency services, the people who are coming to help them. But you're right, yeah, it's absolutely a tough environment, and people don't phone the emergency services when they're having a good day. They're always, it's when they're in crisis, when they've had a crime committed towards them. I think recent figures, there's a lady called Jess Miller has done a study on trauma and published one of the first books, but I think 90% of police officers and staff experience traumatic episodes, and I think 1 in 5 can end up with a form of PTSD. That's the current kind of figures, just to give you statistics. But I think most of it it's still, you're right, people, they want to help people. You ask an emergency service worker and they'll say, you know, I joined to make a difference. So yeah, we all love to help people. I think most people love to help people, and we need to educate folk that we've got an amazing emergency services structure in this country, an amazing police service, and really we need to protect it and look after our workers.
And I want to ask you about people's respect for police, because I remember, now I'm 38, and I remember when I was a boy, you used to respect the police. You used to see a police officer, and whatever you were doing, even if you weren't doing anything wrong, you'd almost stop and go, oh no, there's a policeman over there. But nowadays, sadly, I think we've lost that. And of course, we've heard about these awful situations where, you know, to put it bluntly, the police have got it wrong. They're only human beings. But do you think that, you know, people's respect for the police, it has been damaged?
Well, it has been damaged slightly. I think society as a whole has changed. When I was at school, we had corporate punishment. Obviously, I'm a fair bit older than you, Gareth. And I think when that went, things changed. With the advent of social media, you know, there's a lot of people with strong opinions out there, and they can air those opinions. They've got like a soapbox that they can air the country. So the structure of society has changed slightly, and the kind of ethos of society. And also, as you say, there have been recent events within policing that have obviously shocked the public. And there is a survey recently said that, I think, don't forget, we've still got one of the best police services in the world. It's revered the world over. And we have also got really great mechanisms in place. The HMI CFRS, so the Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabularies and Fire and Rescue Services, keep an eye on this. I mean, you see that the Met have gone into special measures. Cleveland, where I worked, were in special measures in 2019. It sounds bad, but we've got a great structure, which is making sure that police service is kept to the highest possible level. We have lost a bit of ground recently, and that's in the public opinion. You see that it's gone from, I think, 78% of people to 74% of people. So still more than 3/4 of the population love the police. They think the police are great. And, you know, imagine if we didn't have the police service that we've got. Imagine what the country would be like. And look at what you see in other parts of the world as well. I'm not saying that we should be grateful because we don't have terrible situations, but I think we've got a great police service. There's great leadership, great training, but I think we've got some relationships to rebuild. And, you know, you're saying about young people with respect for the police. We've got police community support officers, neighbourhood officers who get right into the community, and the police are at the moment really trying hard to reflect the community they serve. There's a thing called the Positive Uplift Programme. So the people who run the police are working really hard to make the police service the best it can be. And the Met have issued a statement recently that I've read that they want to have the best possible policing service for London. They recognise that things aren't the way they should be. They're being transparent about it. They're not hiding it. So yeah, I think things have changed, but I think we're working hard to make it better. Gareth?
I think we also have to take into account that crime has changed, you know, and we do forget this, that things like knife crime, I mean, presumably in your service, it would have been a rarity for a person to be in a crowded area carrying a knife. But that seems to be, I mean, even at events that I've been to, there's been rumours of, you know, a person being arrested because they're carrying a knife. And then, of course, terrorism and stuff like that. In your time alone, you would have seen these big changes from where a terrorist attack, it was a real rarity, and knife crime, it was a real rarity, to now where it's happening, sadly, a lot more often.
Yeah, I think you look around the world and you see we're a lot more connected. So media stations are more and more connected. The world's more and more connected. So it appears that there's more bad news. Crime and violence actually dropped in the years when I was in the police in some ways, but more recently it seems to have risen. But I think the way we measure crime changes, so it appears that things are going up and down. People carrying knives. I mean, in the 60s in Britain and in New York and things like that, knife crime was horrendous. Um, but you're right, yeah, it's a different world we live in. But another thing again about the British Police Service, people come from all over the world to see how the Met have tackled terrorism, and it's excellent. You know, we really have a great proactive service here, and that we should be proud of. Fear crime is a big thing. Should we fear that bad things are going to happen? I think, you know, the police service are really, let's say, proactive. Fear crime's always exceeded the actual crime itself, and the actual crime that happens is a small part of things that happen in communities. But you know, and I know, if we reported all the good things that were happening in communities each day, the newspapers would be full, the TV would be full of all the great things that are happening. The people in the churches that are working on the streets to help people to feed themselves, clothe themselves, to get their lives on track. There's loads and loads of amazing, great life stories out there where people are changing things for the better, but it doesn't make the news. The things that make the news are things like war, things like acts of terrorism, but the good for me in society far outweighs the bad things that are happening, and there's lots of people trying to help the people who are being derailed and going off in the wrong direction.
We'll be back in a moment. We've got plenty more questions for Brian. Now, if you've got anything you'd like to ask him, I mean, he was a serving officer for nearly 30 years. So he'll have loads of experiences. And of course, he's now seeing it from a different point of view in his role at the Christian Police Association. So send them through on WhatsApp. We'll play a song and then we'll be back with Brian. 0161 511 9555. That's 0161 511 9555. Back with Brian after this. This is Connect Radio, and we're joined at the moment by Brian McCarthy, who's from the Christian Police Association. Thank you for your interesting questions. Some of them are a little bit random, but that's what we do with our guests here. Sometimes the random, the better, because usually if you're thinking it, then the rest of the country are thinking it as well. So, Brian, here's one for you. Why did they decide to lose the traditional tall police hats? It's a really interesting one because my wife is pregnant. She's due in October. And I was joking because we were in the local park over the weekend. And I'm not sure if it's still law, but it's one of those strange things where if you're a pregnant woman, you're allowed to wee in a policeman's hat. And I said to Sam, I said, oh, well, you know, if you are that desperate, there may be a policeman walking past. And then she said, well, the problem is that they don't wear the tall waterproof hats anymore. So what happened? Where have those hats gone, Brian?
Okay, the custodian helmets are still issued. They're just not worn very much now. They're used for like public order because obviously they protect your head. And yeah, there is the rumor going around that you're allowed to wee in policemen's helmets, and I've been asked that many times over the years. But it's just basically people are we're moving towards having more practical uniform, but it's a great emblem of British policing, isn't it? The custodian helmet. It's
That's the thing,
people
isn't it? And
recognise.
in fact, that question continued, and it said that used to command respect in itself, because you'd see the officer in a proper helmet like that. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I reckon if they brought that back, then it would be a thing of, oh, the police are here. A lot of questions as well, asking about your time in the service and some of the situations that you were involved with. So, I mean, near enough 30 years you were there, and
Yep.
there must have been those crimes and those criminals that you met that you went home at night and it was playing on your mind. And what did you do with those thoughts? I mean, if you've been out to an emergency and you've seen some horrific sights, how did you used to sort of get that off your chest? What used to happen at home?
Yeah, to be fair, at home, I wouldn't share very much. It was more probably the canteen when you're at work and you sit down together to eat your lunch, or you're in the panda car together and you're sitting talking. To be fair, I don't think I've really shared very much of the traumatic things that have happened. But yeah, they do play in your mind. They come back to you. I think probably the most kind of traumatic thing that I ever saw was a burglary where someone got stabbed in the face, which was, and I probably shouldn't say this on the radio, it's not going to help people. It's a rarity. It's a real rarity. But helping that person and seeing the person who was responsible getting arrested, being in the ambulance with the person and dealing with their family, made a deep kind of impact on me. But the people were, everybody survived, everybody got better. You know, taking the statements and things was, I think, probably one of the most important things I felt I did in my 30 years. But that I was sitting in the ambulance and I really struggled not to cry with the, you know, with the trauma of the event, and it was more kind of empathizing with it, with what the people had experienced. So, and people, I've seen a lot of different things that I won't list here, but in terms of police service, I think most of my colleagues have probably seen worse than me. I got promoted quite early in my service and spent some time in custody and some time in training. So, but I didn't really speak about it very much at home, because obviously, I mean, you can anonymize things, but these things just sit there. And I think this is why we've got a lot more kind of focus these days on mental health, on dealing with trauma. We've got a thing called TRIM practice now, so trauma incident managers within the force. So if it's recognised that you've been to deal with a tough job or a particularly traumatic job, the trauma incident manager will come and debrief you immediately. So they found that the PTSD tends to, the kind of the memory gets stuck in your hippocampus, and if they can speak to you early and get you to empty that into your normal mind, it stops that constant replay. But yeah, seen lots and lots of things, but it was a real privilege to be in people's most difficult times when they're vulnerable and help people to get back on track. I think one of the things, I spoke to a young lady who was involved in drugs, and again, she had a young daughter, and I said to her, "Why are you doing this?" You know, I was a probationer at the time. "Why are you doing this?" And she actually listened to me and changed her life around. I saw her a few months later, she was cleaned up, got her life on track, was looking after her daughter. Things like that are the things that really stay with me, you know, where I've done something that's helped people in trauma. And that's kind of why most people join the police service. So bear that in mind, you know, when you see all these bad things on the news, we're the people that's running towards it when everybody else is running away.
Now, the slogan of the Christian Police Association, we can see it behind you, faith plus police together. So tell us why this is necessary. Why is it needed that the Christian faith is part of the police service? Or, well, not needed. How is it important, and how does it help the police force?
Wow. So Romans 13, 1-5, I'll just very quickly though, Faith and Police together is, it was our Chair of Trustees, Marie Reevy, was seconded for 2 years to the College of Policing, and they wrote this book. It's called Faith Community's Guide to Engaging with the Police. And it's not just the Christian faith, but there's examples in there of how faith actually, because people with faith, I think more than 75% of people who volunteer in this country are Christian. And even more than that, most of the people who volunteer or give to charity are people of faith. And Robert Peel, the Peelian principles, Robert Peel, who started the police, said it all boils down to that the police are the public and the public are the police. So we've all got responsibility for our little square of England. As a police officer, you get some extra powers, don't you, to deal with the things that are going on. But Romans 13, 1-5 identifies the role and authority of the police services coming from God. So as Christians, we need to pray for our emergency services. And in 1 Timothy 2, 1-2, Paul urges that we pray for all those in authority in order that we may live peaceful and quiet lives. All the laws that we have, the kind of societal structure that we have, all comes from basically the 10 Commandments. You know, you shall not steal, you shall not kill. All the kind of societal structure that we've got in a democratic society comes from those Judeo-Christian ethics that were given to us in the Bible. So why is faith important? It's massively important. And getting back to like the trauma and things, dealing with these incidents, having faith, I don't, the difference between me before I had faith and after I had faith was absolutely night and day. I could see that things happened for a reason. My phone, I've got on my phone Romans 8:28. It's my favorite verse. No, it keeps disappearing because I've got this.
Oh, it's good. There we go. We can sort of see it there. We can sort of see it.
And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. So I think that being in the police, being in the ambulance service, being in the fire, even wherever you work, if you work in a school, if you work in the council, you're called to that place by God. That's my belief, that your path through life is there, and you've got the opportunity to love God and love your neighbour as yourself in every piece of work that you do. But
now we haven't got long until the news. Actually, we're going to be late for the news, but this is the crucial bit.
Okay.
How can we support what you do, and how can we be praying for you guys at the Christian Police Association?
Oh, thank you so much. Right, we've got a website, Christian Police Association website. If you Google Christian Police Association, it's cpauk.net, and in there we've got a prayer diary. So, and we've also got each month there's an on and off duty magazine. So I highlight things in there each month that are of interest to people. You can join the CPA. It's free to join. If you've got police officers in your church, encourage them to join. It's free. It's lifelong. You can get involved as a national conference each year. You can come along to the national conference and get up close to police officers with faith. But if you like what the CPA do and you want to help the police, then join CPA. But go on the website. All the instructions are on there, everything that we're about. But we want to support and encourage and empower Christians in the police service, but not just Christians, everybody in the police service. And we are providing training to our branch leaders to be a seat of excellence and also to help our colleagues.
Well, in return, we want to be supporting you and the great work that you do in supporting other people. So, Brian, thank you so much for your time. And it's been a real insight, actually, into policing and in particular, the Christian Police Association. So blessings to you and all the team there. And remember, do you know what I want you to do, actually? If you see a police officer or a community support officer, have a little chat to them. If you've got time, of course. If they're in an emergency, don't go, hey, officer, come here a minute. No, don't be wasting police time. But if you see them patrolling, just have a natter to them. And maybe even, you know what, buy them a coffee if you're near a coffee shop, because they're protecting us. And where would we be without the great work that they do? Brian, you have a fabulous day. Thanks again, and God bless.
Thank you. God bless. I'll send you a link to this as well, Gareth. This the Faith Community's Guide to Engaging with Police, and there's loads of ideas in there as to, you know, like you say, work alongside your police, volunteer for your police, hospitality for your police. You know, the church buildings are empty most of the days of the week, so let them come and have a meeting with your church congregation. Police officers, it's like tea and coffee and cakes are like magnets to police officers. I should have said this online. And it's great. They love, it's all about relationship. I should have said this online. It's all about relationship, just connecting with people. It's massive, and it makes us stronger as a community.